Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I will be kitting down all of my projects, or most of my projects from February, and we'll be talking about the books that I read last month. Now I say most of my projects because last month was my first month doing this, and I think I only was able to kit down 2 of my 4 projects. In February, I completed 3 diamond paintings. I have posted my month in review if you are looking to see what kits I finished in February. But this video will be kitting all of those diamonds down into my storage system for my spare diamonds and talking about the books I read. So I read a lot of books in February, and I'm actually a little embarrassed because I told Steven, my boyfriend, if you're new here, look at all these different color purples. I told him how many books I read, and then he proceeded to tell everybody how many books I read, and I was like, what are you doing? Or he'll be talking to someone and he'll be like, Laura, he did this to me today. He's out of town with his dad snowmobiling, and he FaceTimed me because today is Luna's birthday, our kitty. And he was like, tell Dad how many books you read. And I was like, why do I need to do that? So I read 33 books in the month of February. Now, I read 13 physical books and 20, is that right? 20 Kindle Unlimited books. So, you know, I read a lot of standalones and a lot of shorter books with fewer pages. So that's kind of what I'm lending to that number. I know it was a lot. Also, I think I read only romance this month, which is the majority of what I read anyway. But I was in a very Valentine's-y mood, obviously, and all of my physical books kind of had a certain vibe. I was going off of the cover. I wanted it to be cute and pink and Valentine's-y, so, you know. Let's just get into it. So yeah, I did read more books than there were days in the month of February. Like I said, I read shorter books, and I had a few days off. I think I had four days off this month, or last month. And there was also a school break. So I work for a school district, but I don't work the same schedule as a teacher. I work all year. I don't work just 10 months out of the year. So I don't get the school breaks. I still have to go to work, but it's kind of a completely different environment when everybody else is on vacation. It's much more low key. So I definitely was able to read a bit more than I was expecting, honestly. When I counted how many books, I was like, I did not see that coming. I did not see me reading that many books. Okay, 3. Of course, I forgot to grab my baggies, so let me do that. Baggies, here we go, stickers, and a pen. Okay. All right, so let's get into the books that I read. So I will start with my first book is from an older series. I talked about this in last month's wrap up. It is a series from the author Bella Andre. And I'm telling you, the book I'm on, or the book first one I started, I think is book 4 in the series. I'm trying to read 3 a month so I can get caught up. There's 22 books in that series, which is crazy, but I started with I Only Have Eyes for You, and this is a part of the Sullivan series. So this series, the first 6 or 7, I can't remember exactly how many books are in the original Sullivan series. It kind of like branched out to cousins and stuff, but the original family, I think there were 7 or 8 of them. And this is the first book about one of the sisters. So there are twin sisters in the series, and she is a librarian, and they just kind of think of her as, I don't know, the shy one. Her twin sister is like a professional choreographer, and she just has a different vibe. So their older brothers call them naughty and nice. So Sophie is considered nice. And she falls in love with her brother's, one of their best friends. And he's like a bad boy, and something happens, and I remember, because I read the first part of the series years ago. This one was published in 2012, so it's an older series, but I remember this being one of my favorite books in the series, and upon the reread, I still feel that way. I don't know, there's just something about like opposites attract. I do love me a brother's best friend book. I don't know why. Maybe because I don't have a brother. But that one got 4 stars from me, so I enjoyed it. I'm trying to think back now. There isn't really, I feel like in a lot of romance books, I think I talked about this last month, they kind of emulate like Hallmark movies where there's always like a third act breakup. I don't recall there being one in this book. I think it was just cute, and I really enjoyed it. And then I read, my first physical book of the month was Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. And this is a second chance romance. They were together when they were teenagers, and something happens, and then they don't see each other for like 11 years. But the main female character, I think her name was Macy, she didn't actually like tell this guy, Elliot, why she broke up with him or didn't see him or talk to him. Now, this book is very popular on like Instagram and YouTube. I didn't love it. It's a 5-star for a lot of people. It was a 2-star for me. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy the main female, Macy. She just kind of annoyed me throughout the whole book. Like, had she just been open and said, like, this is what happened, or this is why I'm upset with you all those years ago, it just would have saved them so much pain. And something, like, absolutely awful happens to somebody in her life while she's, like, dealing with what Elliot did to her. And it's really sad. Like, I was very upset about it. And it just kind of felt like, you know, when you read a book and you feel like the author's just adding in this traumatic experience just for dramatic effect, like it doesn't add anything to the story. That's what it felt like for me. I did not like it. I had really high hopes because some of my favorite people that I watch on YouTube, like book people, it's one of their favorite books, and I did not like it. 2-star, wasn't a favorite. And then I read the, let's see, 5th book in the Sullivan series, and it's If You Were Mine. I loved this one. This one is Zach and Heather's book. So Zach is one of the Sullivan brothers, and he owns like a bunch of car dealerships, and his niece gives him this dog to babysit while she goes on vacation. And that character, she cracks me up. I loved her in her parents' book. So cute. So I was excited to see her make a return in this one. And she names this little dog Cuddles. So you have this big, like, mechanic owner car guy with a little tiny dog that's named Cuddles. It's just really cute. And he meets Heather, who's a dog trainer, of course, and Cuddles and her dog fall in love. It's adorable. I loved it. It was like a feel-good, it was a feel-good book. I really enjoyed it. I gave that one 4 stars. And then for the 6th book, my 3rd book of the Sullivan series that I read this month, last month, whatever, was Let Me Be the One. And this one is also a favorite. This one is about Ryan, who's another of the Sullivan brothers. He is a professional baseball player, which I love me a sports romance, so good on me. But this is a second chance romance. They are not really romance. They were best friends when they were younger, and she went off and married someone else, and then that didn't work out, and she saved him from like a near-death experience when they were high schoolers. So he told her, like, I owe you anything for the rest of your life. So she was in an awkward situation. She calls him, he comes running, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. They were really cute. I enjoyed their book. 4 stars for that one. Okay. I read a lot of very sad books this month. Last month, I can never get it right. I don't know why. I feel like I don't need more sadness in my life, but I went for it. So I read If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. This is an older book. It came out in 2014, but I had seen it making the rounds on Instagram, and I think I saw it in a like reading sad books YouTube vlog, and I was like, I could read that. No. Why did I do that to myself? So this book is about Finn and what was her name? I'm looking to see if I can find her name. Because of course I didn't write it. Why would I put it down? I cannot remember her name. But this one, you find out kind of what happened like very early on in the book, because it starts in the present and then it goes back in time. So the two main characters, their mothers are best friends. So they kind of just become friends, but as they get older, they grow apart. They kind of run in different crowds, and they sometimes just kind of come back together. You know, they're neighbors, and they realize that they still have feelings for each other, and then something awful happens. I could cry. I could cry just thinking about it. It's definitely a YA book, so if you're not really into young adult, it's not, I mean, it's definitely a romance, but it's kind of like a coming of age, and then something traumatic happens. So yeah, I recommend it, but I also recommend that you're in the proper headspace and you're ready to cry, because I read it in one night. I was like, I'm just gonna read a little bit. No, I couldn't put it down. And then by the end of it, I was sobbing, and Steven was like, what are you doing? Why do you read these things? And it was just really sad. And it ended on a freaking cliffhanger, but it's not like I guess it wasn't really a cliffhanger, but it was a cliffhanger, because she alludes to something that happened, but it's never confirmed that that is actually a thing. So yeah, apparently the author is writing this story from Finn's point of view, who is the male main character, and that is coming out in, I think, October. And I want to read it, of course I do, but also, can I handle it? Probably not. So we'll see if I read it. But again, YA, not spicy, obviously, because it's about teenagers. So if you don't like romance books that have spice in them, which I should have mentioned, the 3 Sullivan books that I talked about, those are a little bit spicy, like not offensive in my personal opinion. But Love in Other Words, is that what it was called? Yeah, that didn't really have any spice either. So if you like romances that aren't like they're more closed door, if that makes sense. I would recommend both of them. But again, if you had been with me, be in the right headspace, because it will throw you for a bit of a loop. Just a bit of a loop. Yeah. Okay. And then on my Kindle, I read From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I actually enjoyed this book, but I didn't write a summary. That's weird. I didn't write a summary on that book. I'm going to have to go back and do that. But the two main characters are Lukov and what is her name? Of course, it's not on this little image either. I can't remember what her name is. They're both professional ice skaters. They're both pairs ice skaters, but something happens with the main female's partner, and he drops her and goes and skates with someone else. So she doesn't have a partner. And then Lukov's partner is injured or is taking a season off, and he decides, or his coach decides, to have her skate with him. And they're kind of like enemies a little bit. She just doesn't like him. She thinks he's like cocky, but she's also best friends with his little sister. And then they start skating together, and it was cute. I did enjoy it. A little bit of spice, not a lot. Mariana Zapata doesn't really have any. It's more of like a closed door. Like, you know what's probably about to happen, but you don't read about it. So, it was good. I want to purchase the physical copy to put in my bookshelves because I did enjoy it. Okay. Oh. And then I read Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Now, I've never read a Colleen Hoover book before this, and I know that she's kind of controversial, I guess, from what I have seen on social media. She's kind of controversial, so you either love her or you hate her, and if I'm basing it off of one book, I don't like it. I did not like this book at all. I gave it a 1 star. I hated it so much. And I have other Colleen Hoover books to read, and now I'm like, what have I done? I just assumed that I would like her work, and I bought a few, and now I'm regretting my decision. Now, I have not read her most popular books, which I think is It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us. But this one was ranked really high on people's lists. Like, a lot of people liked this book. I hated it. I don't even want to tell you about it because it was so awful. Like, the female lead character, she just was so bleh. I didn't like it. And she moves in with her brother, and he's a pilot, and his best friend lives down the hall who's also a pilot, and he's kind of an a-hole, and of course they get together. I didn't like it. It was spicy in some areas, but she just was such a doormat, and I don't get it. Like, you know, I get it. You may not be confident or I'm not confident either, but also I'm not going to let some man just walk all over me. No, thank you. So I did not like, do not recommend, 1 star. Don't waste your time. But in saying that, if you read this book and you enjoyed it and you're a big Colleen Hoover fan, good for you. I'm not here to like attack her. I don't really know anything. I just know that she's controversial for whatever. But books that I don't like, I don't want people to take that as I think you read crappy books or anything. Everybody has their own opinion, and I didn't like that book. I have other books from her. I'm going to read them because I'm intrigued. But this was just, it was just a no. It was a no for me. I didn't like it. Then I went on to read To Love Jason Thorne by Ella Maisie. Loved it. I love that book. I have it down here as 4.5 stars, but I really think that it's a 5-star for me. I loved it so much. I went out and bought the physical copy so that I could reread it and annotate it because I loved it so much. This is a brother's best friend romance. second chance romance, kind of. Were they together when they were kids? I don't think so. I think she just had a huge crush on him. So it's about Jason, who is a huge Hollywood actor. And the main female's name is Olive. And like I said, they knew each other when they were kids. Her brother and Jason were best friends. And then his mother, something happens to his mother, and he moves away with his dad. And they never see or hear from him again until Olive writes a book, and she is like #1 seller. Everybody's going crazy for it, and they want to make it into a movie. So she goes into a meeting with a production company, and the person that they want to star is Jason. So they meet each other. She tries to play it off like she doesn't know him, and he's like, Olive, you know who I am. It was just really, really cute. And he kind of has this reputation of being a playboy, and his people think that it would be best if he appears to be settling down and committing, and that's kind of where Olive comes in. So it's a fake dating, brother's best friend romance, and then it was really good. I loved it. I loved this book. It's, like I said, it's a 4.5 star on here, but I think it's really a 5 star in my mind. Because I thought about that book for a few days after I read it, and that's kind of when I'm like, you might be a 5 star if I keep thinking about you. So I loved that one so much that I read the second book in that little universe, which was To Hate Adam Connor. And this is Olive's best friend, Lucy. She cracked me up. Oh my gosh. She moves in with Jason and Olive at the end of their book, or at the beginning, I can't remember, of this book. And another A-list actor, of course, moves in next door, and her antics just cracked me up. Like, she would spy on him and it was just really cute. I thoroughly enjoyed it. He has a son, and that added little piece was really cute, and I enjoyed it. That one is a 4.5 star for me. I'm not going to bump it up to a 5, but it is a 4.5. And there's a little bit of mystery kind of woven into that one, which was fun. But it was cute. I also bought the physical copy of that book to add to my library. All right, and then I went on a little bit of a Kindle series binge, and I have to show you guys these covers because they're so cute and so Valentine's-y. So, like, just look at this little, oh, don't look at that one. But aren't they just, look, they're all Valentine's-y themed. So I started with the first book in the series. This is about brothers, and it's called A Not So Meet Cute. 5 stars. Easy 5 stars. I was cracking up through this whole thing. The main character, the main female, Lottie, she was hysterical. I loved her. It's a fake romance, fake dating, mutual benefits for both type of thing, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. There are some there's an interesting added thing to the fake dating that I didn't love, so I don't want to I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but the author redeemed it for me. Why did I just pour that into that tray? I don't know why I did that. The author redeemed it for me when she was talking about how they were going to address it. So it was still a 5 star, even though I didn't really love that aspect, but the two of them, Huxley is the main male character, and Lottie, they were hysterical. I loved them. Okay. Did I say I gave that a 5 stars? I think I did. And then, by far, the book that wrecked me the most this month, literally, I still think about it every day, and I could probably cry just thinking about it, is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This book got me from page 1. And this is another one that I was like, I'm just going to read a few chapters. No, I stayed up until 11 p.m. to read the whole thing in one sitting because I needed to know what happened. So this is about Rune and Poppy. Rune comes to the US from Norway, I'm pretty sure, and him and his family move in next door to Poppy and her family. And I'll tell you, something happens in like chapter 1 that just made me tear up. And then they become inseparable. They're best friends. They eventually become more as they become teenagers, and they're just connected at the hip. They are, yeah. And then Rune's father has to go back to Norway for his job, and Rune is like, I'm never talking to you again, you're ruining my life. But the two of them are committed to staying together and, you know, talking every day, and that goes on for a bit, and then Poppy stops all communication, and it completely destroys Rune, and he like completely changes. He's a completely different person. Fast forward, I want to say like 2 or 3 years, I can't quite remember. His family is relocated back to the US. They move back into their house next door to Poppy, and she sees that Rune is completely changed, and she's like, what happened to him? And obviously, you know, it's because she cut him off, but she cut him off because she thought she'd never see him again, and she thought it was what was best for him. And then the events unfold, and it is gut-wrenching. This is a YA book. And to be fair, I do feel like I read YA books a lot faster than regular, like adult books, just because I feel like the writing is a little bit knocked down a couple levels, obviously, so that younger people feel comfortable reading it. When I tell you that I literally sobbed reading this book, I 100% mean it. And if you're looking for a book to just like release your feelings, this is a good one. I sobbed, and again, I was on the couch while Steven was playing video games, and he saw me and he was like, why don't you just put that down for a little bit? And I was like, I can't. I need to read it. I need to know what's happening. And at the end, I just went over to him. I like koala beared him. Like I wrapped myself around him, and I was like, I just need to sit here for a few minutes. It's hard to say it's like good because it's so sad, but it was so good. I would recommend like checking trigger warnings for this book if you're somebody who is like has been through traumatic experiences. I just kind of went into it. I don't necessarily check trigger warnings personally because I'm all in. Like if something piques my interest, I'm reading it. But I know that some people do like to do that, so I am just saying it's sad. So maybe look them up if you're somebody who normally would do that. Oh my gosh. I will say that it being a YA book, there are no like graphic details of intercourse, but it definitely is alluded to, and you get like a little tiny bit, but it's not like spicy craziness. Also, I will say I kind of felt like this book had a little bit of a religious undertone, and I don't mean that in like the author was shoving their religion in your face, because she definitely wasn't, but just the way that the main character kind of looks at certain things and certain situations, I just kind of get a little bit of a religious undertone. But as somebody who is not very religious at all, it didn't like rub me the wrong way at all. It was fine. But the ending, the whole book wrecked me. But then in the epilogue, I was like, I'm sorry. Way to knock a girl out when she's freaking down already. Thank you so much. I had to read it twice because I didn't, like, I thought I made up words in my head. Like, I was like, there's no way that's what's actually happening. But yeah, I read it twice, and sure enough, that's what was happening. So I do recommend it, especially if you're looking for a good cry, because don't be ashamed of that. After that book, I needed some light some lightness, okay? So I went back to that series. They're the Kane brothers. I can't exactly remember what the series is called, but I read So Not Meant to Be, which was actually so disappointing. I gave it a 3 stars. I hated the female character, the main character in this book. I hated her. She is the sister of Lottie from that first book, and I couldn't stand her. She was awful. She ruined the whole book for me, which is a shame because I loved this brother's story. So the brother is JP, and I loved him. His story. He like appears to be this bad boy, but he's really just like a nerdy, cute, adorable guy, and I love that. So I loved his side, but I could not stand Kelsey as the main character. So that was a bummer because I was really looking forward to that one, but unfortunately not the best. Kelsey ruined it for me. And then that series is kind of like, I was reading it in order as the author, I think, recommends, and it switches characters. So it's not one of the brothers, but he's a friend of them, kind of, and a coworker. And I liked this one. I gave it 3 stars, but I found it interesting because it was about an older, they're not old, but older, more established couple. So they're actually married, and she feels like he's not putting her first, and she's doing all these things. She's keeping the house. He's a retired baseball player, and he started like commentating on sports, so he's not really around, and she just feels like he doesn't appreciate everything she does for them, and she decides that she wants to get a divorce. So in theory, I was like, okay, I'm not married, but my boyfriend and I have been together for, it'll be 6 years, I think, this May. We've been together a long time. We live together, and I can see, you know, my sister's been married for 13 years. I can see how a lot of women, a lot of wives would relate to this book. So I was like, I like this. I like that I'm not reading about, you know, 22-year-old romance. This is like an adult romance. They're established, they're a couple, and she just feels underappreciated. And I was all on board, except I hated the female character again. Her name is Mila, and she was like, I couldn't stand her. The main guy is Riot, interesting name, and she tells him that she wants a divorce, and he's devastated. He's like, I didn't know. What am I missing? What have I overlooked? I'm so sorry. What can I do? And she's like, nothing. It's like, what do you mean nothing? Why don't you want to save your marriage? But it goes like back in time to all the times that they met before they started dating, and you just see them fall for each other, and then you see what's happening in quote unquote real time, and she's just like, no, I don't want to save it. Did not like it at all. I loved Riot. He was great, and eventually they do, you know, reconcile. Of course, it's a romance, but I don't know, for his sake, I kind of wish that they didn't, and that he found someone else, because I didn't like her. But I will say, if you do decide to read this series, you don't have to read this book. You could just go to the Third Brothers. I'm not quite sure why this one was stuck in there. I guess because you go to an event for one of the other characters in the first 2 books. So it's kind of like just stuck into that same kind of timeline. But you don't have to read it. Nothing really happens that would prohibit you from understanding the 3rd book in the brothers' books. So I went to A Long Time Coming, which is that 3rd book, The Third Brother. This is about Breaker. There are very interesting names for these characters. I gave this one a 4-star because I loved their relationship, their friendship. So it's about Breaker and Ophelia, and they're besties. Like, they've been best friends since college. She is dating someone else, and he's trying his best, you know, like, to be happy for her. and they live next door to each other. They are big nerds together. I think they were in like a Scrabble club in college, and they get together and play games, and basically Ophelia's fiance ends up being her fiance in the book. Couldn't stand him, so I'm glad that the two of them got together, and they were just really cute together. The one thing I will say, which is kind of how I feel about all like second chance romance books or friends to lovers that like spanned over multiple years, I feel like in the end it just ends up being such a waste. Like if these two had just said to each other, like, I'm in love with you, are you in love with me? Okay, perfect. They would have been together and happy for so long. So sometimes I get a little burnt out on that type of book because I get so frustrated that they just let themselves get in each other's way and they just didn't tell each other how they felt. I don't know. But I did enjoy that one. I think it was my favorite. No, the first, Huxley and Lottie were my favorite. And then Breaker and Ophelia were my second favorite. Okay, and then I went back to, I should say, those books in that series, spicy. So if you don't like spice in your books, don't read them. And then I read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This is a football, the main character, the main male is a football player. He plays in the NFL and he makes it to the Super Bowl, which I read this over Super Bowl weekend. So it just kind of, you know, I got the vibes. And I would classify this as a young adult book personally. I don't know if it is officially, but I would class it that way. So these two, I can't remember their names. I really can't. He's a football player. She is a ballerina, but she had a car accident, so she can't dance professionally anymore. So she teaches ballet, but they're best friends. And he sees other girls, and like it kind of opens with her going into his apartment, and there's a girl there, and the girl is like so pissed that she's there, but he's like, oh, you don't like my bestie? Bye, get out. So it's just like from the start, you're like, okay, clearly they should be together. And this one is dual point of view, so you get both her and his thought process, and they're both just so in love with each other. Again, but they just don't tell each other. It's so annoying. But it was cute. I gave it 3 stars. It was a cute, fast read. I think I read it. I started it late one night and then I finished it in the next day. So it was cute. I did enjoy it. Again, it's closed door romance, so it's not spicy. So if you're looking for something like that, I would recommend. I think it's cute. Okay. This is another book that made me very sad. So this book is Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. This was a 5-star for me. I feel like whenever I'm like, that's how you can kind of know that I loved it and I cried. So this book starts out, before I even go there, I will say, if you decide to read this book, I very much encourage you to look up trigger warnings. I did not, like I mentioned before, I normally don't, but I got this book recommended by one of the book YouTubers that I watch. Her name is Sarah Caroli, and this is one of her favorite books. And she kind of mentioned, without mentioning, what kind of happens. So I feel like I had a pretty good idea and I was comfortable with just reading it. So this book starts out with the main female character, Charlotte, I think she's on the train or the subway maybe, and she's on her way to do something. And you're kind of going through her thought process of why this is the right answer, why this is the only way that she can, you know, see things working out, and it's her best option at that time. So you see her doing that. She gets to where she was going. She gets up on top of her school, and there is somebody else there named Kellen. And obviously, they have the same thought. They both want to do the same thing. And they make a pact to meet every year on Valentine's Day, which happens to be Charlotte's birthday, to check in with each other and kind of like hold each other accountable to not do the thing that they're thinking about doing. I know I'm talking in circles, but I don't want to completely ruin the book for you. So they meet every year. They, like I said, they come up with this pact. They're going to meet, but they can't talk any other time during the year. They go to the same school, and he's kind of an outcast, and he doesn't want her to be thought differently of because she associates with him. So every year for freshman year, junior year, or freshman, sophomore, and junior year, they meet on top of the building. Well, senior year, she was running late, and she gets there, and he has done something and is no longer around. So then you flash forward, and she is working for a publisher, I think. And the publisher asks her to go run an errand for her. She does, and she ends up meeting Kellen's older brother. And she realizes who he is by his last name, but he doesn't know who she is at the time. And then, you know, something happens between them. They end up getting together, like meeting up, not getting together, meeting up so that they can talk about Kellen and that whole situation. And then things conspire between them. It's an age gap romance, and it's kind of crazy. It's very like twisty turny. A lot of things happen. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5-star. I liked it so much. You know, I did buy the physical copy, but I also bought another book from this author to read in March, which I'm very excited about. Let me grab our next container. So yeah, I liked it. It's spicy. There is some spice. There's a scene. The doctor is an OB, so he's like gynecology, obstetrics, whatever. And something happens that's like, ooh, weird. But I just kind of like sped past it. I was like, okay, speed read. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. Check it out if you are interested. Okay, and then on my Kindle, I read Black Ties and White Lies by Kat Singleton. This came out recently, and I had been seeing this book on Instagram nonstop. Like, it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about it. There were reels and whatever, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna read it. So this book is about Beckham and Margot. So Margot at one point dated Beckham's younger brother, and he ended up cheating on her, and Beckham is basically obsessed. So he ends up buying her company where she works, just so he'll talk to her, because she kept ignoring him and refusing his texts and calls because she just assumed that he was reaching out to her on behalf of his brother, but he wasn't. They actually hate each other. And yeah, I liked it. It was spicy. It was a little, sometimes with like billionaire romances, it just seems so unattainable to me that I'm like, this is weird, right? Like, do rich people actually do these things? But I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited if you're interested. Okay, I'm excited to talk to you guys about this one. So I read the Dreamland Billionaire series, which is by the author Lauren Asher. I read all 3 books right in a row because I was obsessed. This is about, I'm going to talk about the whole series, and then I'll kind of give you my thoughts on each book as I go. So this series is about 3 brothers. They're the Kane brothers. Interesting. I read 2 series about brothers with the last name of Kane. Huh. And they are billionaires, obviously. It's called the Dreamland Billionaire series. And their grandfather passes away, and he, in his will, leaves them each tasks to inherit their portion of the company. So basically their grandfather built a Disneyland. It's kind of, I don't know, I read it as if it was Disneyland. It's a theme park. It's like the most popular theme park. They have all the popular princesses, and you get it. So in order to inherit their portion or their particular job title, they need to do these tasks. So the first book is about Rowan, who his task to eventually become CFO is he has to go to Dreamland, to the main park, and he has to work as like a certain supervisor for 6 months. And while he's there, he meets this girl, and they end up falling in love, and it's cute. Rowan isn't my favorite brother. In fact, I think he's my least favorite brother. But I did enjoy their story. I gave it a 5-star because I really enjoyed the main female character. Her name is Zara. And I also really liked that this series is very focused on like interracial couples. So I cannot remember Zara's, I can't remember where she comes from. I believe her family does move to the United States, but I can't remember exactly her nationality, but I loved the representation of that. And also her younger sister has Down syndrome, and Zara starts up this like buddies program that matches a Down syndrome person with a quote unquote typical person. I hate using that terminology, but and Rowan is partnered with Zara's little sister, and the two of like the scenes they have together were just some of my favorite. I absolutely loved them. Her sister was so stinking cute, and yeah, it had representation, and I really liked that. Also, Rowan was on the high school bowling team. Same, you never ever hear about bowling in books, so I was like, yes. So that was the first book, and that was a 5-star. And then I read the second book, which is Terms and Conditions. And this is about Declan, who is the oldest brother. And in order for him to become CEO, he needs to get married and have a child, which is like, Grandpa, what are you doing? What are you doing to your freaking grandkids? But he is like so miserable that his assistant has been setting up like these women with contracts to like marry him. And they meet him and they like walk out. They're like, no, I cannot. So she ends up volunteering to marry him. And they are just, I love them both. Her name is Iris. Another interracial relationship. She is Black, and I loved it. I loved it. It was so good. And Declan is basically like such a jerk. And then she comes into his life in this more romantic way, and he just completely changes, and I love it. 5 stars. And then I read the final book in the series, which is Final Offer. I was the most excited for this one because I love this particular brother. His name is Cal, and he has to go to their lake house that they used to go to as kids, and he has to stay there for a summer before he sells it, which is interesting because Cal doesn't really have a stake in the company like his older brothers do, just because he doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. So he has like, I don't want to say, like he has a part of it, but he doesn't know that he like wants that to be his life. You know what I mean? But he used to go to this lake house every summer. He used to spend so much time there, and he fell in love, and then something happens and he leaves her and says like, I'll never see you again. I'm never coming back here. So he gets to the lake house, and it turns out that the lake house is in both his name and the girl's. Her name is, gosh, what's her name? Alana? I think it's Alana. So, you know, all that fun stuff. Now, I found this story very interesting because it is a second chance romance, but there's so much focus on Cal and his addictions and mental health. There's like so much representation for that. And I feel like there's just not enough for that in books anyway, but especially for male characters. So I feel like this one, Lauren Asher just did so well with like the addiction representation, seeking help for yourself and not for others. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was very well written. I will say I think the second book, Terms and Conditions, is my favorite, and then I think it goes Final Offer. I don't know, those two are so close. So each of the 3 books got 5 stars, and then the series as a whole is a 5-star for me. So, and Alana, I believe, is Hispanic. So they were all interracial kind of relationships, and I enjoyed that. Okay, and then we've got to be almost there, right? I have no idea. And then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I gave this book a 4-star, and I did enjoy it. I think the thing that I liked most about this one was it was actually a reverse age gap. So the main character, Alexis, was 10 years older than Daniel, which, if you didn't know, I'm actually older than Steven. I'm 5 years older than he is, which at times, like, I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but, you know, sometimes it's like, nobody thinks twice about a man being older than the woman. But as soon as you're like, yeah, I'm older than my boyfriend, people are like, what? So I loved that it was a reverse age gap. And I don't know, just having a book like that was nice. And again, it was a more adult relationship. He's 28, she's 38. They're just more established. So I did enjoy that. However, the main female, Alexis, she kind of ticked me off quite a bit because she was so obsessed with like her family's name and doing things that her family wanted her to do that she just ticked me off. I'm like, but what about you? What about what you want? What about your relationship? And her dad, he was written, I could not stand that man. Anytime he was on the page, I was like, speed read through this before I punch him. So, but I did give it a 4-star. I did like it. There are some other books from this author that I'm really looking forward to reading. This was the first one, so I liked it. I would recommend. Okay. I read a duology on my Kindle Unlimited called Dance, Butterfly Dance, and Burn, Butterfly Burn. I will not be talking about these books because they ended up being something that I was not expecting. And I just don't feel comfortable talking about it on my channel. So they're both on Kindle Unlimited. They're by the author Reese Rivers. I advise you with caution to check them out. I did enjoy them. I gave them both. I gave the first one 4 stars and the second one 3.5 stars. It was just a lot. I was like reading and I'm like, oh, okay, fake dating. This is cool. This is cool. And then it just spirals. And I was like, So we'll not be talking about them, but check them out if you're interested. Again, they are on Kindle Unlimited. Okay, then I read the first 2 books in the Influencer series by Amy Leah. Those are the only 2 books that are out right now. The first one is Set on You, and this is about a curvy fitness influencer on Instagram, and she kind of has this like grudge towards this guy at her gym, and they don't get along, and then they end up being put into this situation where their families are now linked, so they see each other kind of often. I honestly thought that I would like the second book in the series more, but I ended up really enjoying the first book. I gave it a 3.5 star. It was cute. It was a little spicy. Nothing too crazy in my opinion, but I don't know. I liked Scott, which is the main male. The female was okay. Her name is Crystal. She was okay. She was just kind of a little much, which I feel like when authors write about influencers, it's kind of can be like hit or miss, but it was okay. I'm just gonna end it at that. It was okay. I liked it. 3.5 stars. I will be reading the 3rd book in the series because I'm invested, and I think that that character is my favorite from the first 2. So then I read, oh, I didn't read that one yet. Okay. I went back to my Kindle and I read Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Fields, and this one was interesting. So the main character's name is Stevie, and she has a crush on her older brother's best friend. Are they older siblings or are they twins? I think he's older than her. And she just has a crush on him, and, you know, whatever. So Everett is the brother's best friend, is a disaster. He's a mess. He has parents who are awful. They don't care about him, and he just kind of spirals and takes Stevie with him as a bit of collateral damage. And he just kind of keeps coming back to her life, and she's just there because she's so like enamored with him until something happens, and then she's like, I'm done. No, thank you. So she goes to college and she meets this guy named Chase, I think it is. And he's a baseball player, and he's like obsessed with her. Like the first time he sees her, he's like, oh my gosh, I love you. And she's like, I'm over Everett, I'm moving on. And they kind of just start as friends, and then, you know, whatever. Well, then Everett just keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back. Something happens and she chooses somebody. I'm not going to tell you which one. And you just kind of follow her through that choice and the events that happen afterward. This book is quite heavy on like addiction and alcoholism. And there's it's another one where there's pretty good representation of, you know, rehabilitation and therapy, and I enjoyed that. There were some things that happened that I was like, yikes, but in the end, I did like it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I have not purchased the physical copy yet, but it's on my list because I did like it. Let me just get these 2 diamonds out. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So I have another duology that I read by the author Kelsey Clayton, and it's Suffer in Silence and Screams in Symphony. These are both mafia romances, which they came to me from a recommendation. Somebody that I know had read them, and they're like, you should try it, because I had never read a mafia romance before, which I will say is not for the faint of heart, because I was like, whoa, what's happening? Since it is a mafia romance, there was this like bit of mystery, like something happens to Sutton, who's the main female, and you just, at the end of the first book, something happens to her and you don't really know who it was. They kind of spin it to make it look like one person, and then it ends up being somebody else. I had a feeling I knew who it was, but I ended up being right. But I did enjoy them. I gave the first book 3 stars and the second book 4 stars. I did like it. It was kind of like dip your toe in mafia, but I don't know how soon I'll go back or how often I'll go back. But that whole like everyone in the world sucks but her, and I'll kill anybody that touches her, I was like, whoa, okay, I see you. There was some spice. So just saying. Okay, and then I read Inevitable by Jenna Hartley. This book, I have it as 3 stars, but I feel like I might drop it down to another star, so it would be 2. I don't know. The main female, I think her name is, I didn't write it down. I can't remember. She goes to work for her dad's best friend. Okay, for something that she has no interest in, like, at all. And her dad approaches her about it like he just hasn't been himself lately, and, you know, you guys, he always loved you so much when you were a kid, and he, you know, I don't know. So her dad basically ends up playing matchmaker, and it's a dad's best friend romance. So it's like age gap, like big one. And not to say like anything about people. You love who you love. Like I told you guys, I'm 5 years older than Steven, so you know, you love who you love no matter what. But it was just a little awkward for me. Like thinking myself, like falling in love with one of my dad's friends. Like I don't know. It was a little much for me. I did finish the book. The two end up being like so cute and kind of perfect for each other, but it's kind of just hard to get over that he's your dad's best friend. Personally, it is a series. I don't have the desire to continue through that series. It just wasn't enough to hook me. But I did read it, so I wanted to share it. I gave it 3 stars, but I think it's more of like a 2. And then I went back to that influencer series by Amy Leah for X's and O's. Now, this is about Tara, who is Crystal from the first book. It's her sister. And I really thought I was going to like this book. Look at me. I'm not even freaking kidding. I just start talking about books and my brain stops. I thought I was going to love this book because Tara is a bookstagrammer, I think is what you call them. And she loves books. She talks about books all the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you. Let's do it. I didn't like the book. I gave it 3 stars, but I'm kind of tempted to bump it down to like 2.5 stars because I found the main female character so annoying. I could not stand her. She tried to relate everything in her life to like things that happen in books. So she decides that she wants to, after a failed engagement, her fiance leaves her. She decides that she wants to reconnect with all of her exes so that she can have her chance at like a second chance romance. And honestly, it's just so cringy. I did not like it at all. In fact, let's just delete a star right now. 2 stars. Let's do the same for this one. 2 stars. I didn't like it. I don't know. I liked the main male character. His name was Trevor. He was cute. He was another firefighter. So basically, Tara is living with her sister Crystal from the first book. Tara and Crystal's fiance Scott swap apartments. So Scott moves in with Crystal and Tara moves in with Scott's roommate Trevor. And then they just become friends. And he's helping her kind of talk to these men that were so awful to her. And then he's just like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I helping? So it was good. I liked him. He was kind of like a reformed playboy. And yeah, it was okay. Like I said before, the 3rd book in the series is coming out. And I think I'm going to like, I hope I'm going to like that one more. That is Crystal and Tara's friend, I think. So I'm interested to see where that goes. All right, we're getting to the end. So after that, I started a series on Kindle Unlimited called the Playboys of New York. And I think I read the first 3 in February. I have since read the final 2 at the beginning of March, but I won't talk about those until my March video. So the first one is Off Limits. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It's about Noah and Chloe. So Chloe, the book starts with Chloe getting married, or she's about to get married. Something happens with her fiance, and she ends up taking her friends with her on their honeymoon. So she leaves him without him knowing, and she's like, let's go girls, and they go on the honeymoon together, where she meets Noah. And then they end up meeting again in the future. And I just loved his character. I thought he was so cute. Obviously, he was a playboy. This is called Playboys of New York. So I feel like all of the guys are reformed playboys. But he was just so cute. And you could tell kind of as you're reading it that his public persona is completely different from who he really is in private. So I did like them. They were so cute. 4 stars. And then the second book in that series is called Strictly Forbidden, which is about Noah's twin brother, Logan, who he's a lot like more rough around the edges than Noah. And he has some things that happened when he was younger that he's trying to work through. And yeah, I will say this book and the third one that I read that I haven't talked to you yet, the first 3 books in the series, so Off Limits, Strictly Forbidden, and The Merger, they all happen at the same time. So these 3 men and 3 women, so it's like 2 friend groups. So a group of guys and a group of girls. And they all kind of intermingle and they kind of all end up with each other. And these things happen at the same time. So you're reading the same story from like 6 points of view once you finish reading the first 3 books. And it got very annoying to me. I didn't like that, but I liked the stories. So I found myself like skimming through. When I knew I was reading a scene that I've already read before, I would like just quickly skim it and I would just move on. Because sure, you're seeing it from a different point of view, but I'm reading the same exact scene because the same characters are talking to each other that were talking to each other in the previous book. So that was kind of annoying, but I can say that in the 4th and 5th book, that stops. They take place at different points on a timeline, thankfully, because I was over it. I was like, if I'm going to read this same scene in 5 books, I'm going to lose my mind. So the first 3 were a little repetitive, but I really liked the characters, so I was okay with it. So Strictly Forbidden, I gave 4 stars. And before I get to the 3rd book in that series, I read a physical book called Just Another Love Song by Carrie Winfrey. I gave this 3 stars. This is a second chance romance. The main character, Sandy, she never leaves her hometown. Her high school boyfriend, Hank, goes off to college. She was supposed to go to college with him, but her financial aid fell through and her parents couldn't afford it. So she didn't leave and she decided to just let him go. He ends up becoming a successful musician. He comes back to their hometown, divorced and with a kid, and they kind of just get their second chance. I gave it 3 stars because it was cute, but I don't know. I did like that it was about older people, like they were in their 30s. When I say older, like I'm in my 30s. I don't mean old. I just mean not 22-year-olds, you know, like a lot of romance books. They were established people. She has her own business. He's a music person. He's a country singer. So they're established and they come back to each other as adults. And I feel like that did a lot for their relationship. I got to kind of the area, like, I don't know, 30, 40 pages from the end. And I was like, okay, here comes the 3rd act breakup. What's going to happen? And something did happen, but because they were functioning adults, they were able to talk about it and keep it from snowballing. And I really appreciated that because I feel like miscommunication in books is one thing that really frustrates me, but these 2 were able to just like talk it out and everything. There was a little bit of like, I don't know. It was basically closed door. You knew it was happening, but you weren't getting like all the gritty details. So if you prefer books like that, then this was a cute one. I did like it. And I thought I thought the cover was cute for Valentine's Day. Last book of the month, which I finished on the 28th, was The Merger, which is book 3 in that Playboys of New York series. This is about Emma and Anderson. Emma is a part of that girl group, friend group, and Anderson is a part of Noah and Logan's friend group. And this one was crazy to me. So Anderson is a billionaire. His sister kind of makes her way into the book. She's a big time actress, and the 2 of them like to play pranks on each other. So she pranks him into getting married to Emma. And it ends up being like a marriage of convenience. And then they fall for each other. So there's more to it than that though. The ending shook me. I was not anticipating what was going to happen. So I kind of feel like these books, like this series, the first 3 kind of have a little bit of a mystery element. At least the first book and the 3rd book definitely do. like a little bit of shock value. I was like, whoa, what just happened? So I did enjoy the series. I think the first 3 books all got 4 stars. So those were the 33 books that I read in February. Yes, I am aware that there are 28 days in the month. There were a couple of days where I finished 2 books, and I'm not upset about it. I do not do a video where I talk about what I want to read in March, but if that's something that you'd be interested in, let me know and we can figure that out. I don't know. I don't want my channel to become too much centered around books because I know not everybody cares, I guess. But hopefully you guys are still enjoying these monthly kit down and chats. Again, I did not finish all of my kitting down, which is a bummer for me, but I will do that now. And I will see you guys in Wednesday's video, which is a small shop spotlight. So make sure you come back. I'm super excited to share that with you guys. And Friday will be my usual post review. So I hope you guys have a great week. I will see you again on Wednesday. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will talk to you later. Bye.